Captain Hyun's coffee went cold as the priority alert flashed across his screen at exactly 0600 hours. The Earth Defense Force had been monitoring deep space for over a decade, but nothing had prepared them for this moment. 3 massive objects, each the size of a small city, had materialized at the edge of the solar system like ghosts stepping out of the void. Their energy signatures pulsed with patterns that made the quantum computers at NORAD struggle to process. "The data. Sir, we're getting readings that don't match anything in our database," reported Sergeant Kim, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "These aren't asteroids or comets. The energy output suggests advanced propulsion systems, possibly fusion-based, but the harmonics are completely alien." Hyun leaned forward, studying the holographic display that showed the 3 vessels maintaining perfect formation near Pluto's orbit. Each ship appeared to be constructed from materials that bent light in impossible ways, creating an almost liquid appearance that hurt to look at directly. "Send word to Seoul Command immediately. Lieutenant Mina needs to see this." 8,000. Kilometers away in the underground command center beneath Seoul, Lieutenant Mina's fingers danced across her tactical interface as priority alerts cascaded down her screen. The joint military exercise scheduled for today suddenly took on new significance. 3 continents were about to witness the largest coordinated military demonstration in human history, and now they had an audience. "Bring up the global tactical." "A display," Mina ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The massive wall screen illuminated, showing troop movements across North America, Europe, and Asia. Red dots marked armored divisions, blue triangles indicated air squadrons, and green squares showed naval battle groups. To human eyes, it looked like a carefully orchestrated ballet of military precision. High above Earth's atmosphere, the alien vessel Serenity's Edge drifted silently through space, like a massive jellyfish made of living crystal. Its bioluminescent hull pulsed with soft blue light as internal chambers filled with a breathable liquid that allowed the aquatic Nereidi crew to function in zero gravity. Captain Zethara's tentacles gracefully manipulated the ship's organic controls, her large dark eyes studying the primitive planet below. "Fascinating," she whispered, her voice creating melodic bubbles in the liquid atmosphere. "The inhabitants appear to be engaging in some form of ritualistic preparation. Look at the patterns of movement. The ship's sensory organs, grown rather than built, detected the electromagnetic signatures of human communications. The Nereidi translation matrix struggled with concepts like deployment orders and tactical positioning, interpreting them as ceremonial arrangements rather than military commands. To beings who had evolved in peaceful ocean depths, the idea of coordinated violence was as alien as breathing water was to humans. Meanwhile, in the Nevada desert, Captain Jin's mechanized unit roared across the sand dunes in a display of raw, mechanical power. The M1 Abrams tanks kicked up massive clouds of dust as they maneuvered through the training course, their 120 Militua cannons swiveling to track simulated targets. Jin's voice crackled over the radio as he coordinated the complex maneuver, unaware that every word was being analyzed by crystalline beings whose bodies were composed of living silicon and light. The Lumenis delegation aboard their diamond-shaped vessel watched in bewilderment as the human war machines demonstrated their capabilities. These beings, who communicated through harmonic resonance and had never known physical conflict, interpreted the tank formations as an elaborate dance. The coordinated movements, the precise timing, the thunderous sounds of machinery. It all seemed like a magnificent cultural performance designed to celebrate their arrival. "Their aesthetic sense is remarkable," harmonized Council Member Veltar, his crystal body refracting the desert sunlight into rainbow patterns. "Notice how they arrange their metal constructs in perfect geometric formations. The sound patterns they create must have deep spiritual significance. The aliens' advanced sensors recorded everything with scientific precision, but their peaceful nature prevented them from recognizing the true purpose of what they observed." When Jin's unit fired their main guns during the live-fire exercise, the Lumenis delegation interpreted the explosive blasts as pyrotechnic displays rather than demonstrations of destructive capability. Back on the Serenity's Edge, the Nereidi, Crew compiled their initial observations for transmission to the Galactic Council. Their report described a species engaged in elaborate ceremonial preparations, possibly welcoming rituals designed to honor their first contact with galactic civilization. The concept that humans might be preparing for war never entered their calculations. As the day progressed, more alien vessels began arriving at the system's edge. Word had spread through quantum communication networks that a new species had been discovered, one that appeared to possess fascinating cultural traditions, involving synchronized movement and impressive technological displays. Representatives from a dozen worlds gathered to observe what they believed would be humanity's peaceful introduction to the galaxy. None of them suspected they were watching the most dangerous species in the galaxy prepare for battle. Dr. Yuna rubbed her tired eyes as streams of alien data cascaded across her 12-monitor setup in the underground xenolinguistics facility. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she couldn't tear herself away from the most incredible discovery in human history. The alien transmissions weren't random. They contained structured patterns that suggested complex language, mathematics, and something that looked disturbingly like tactical assessments of human military capabilities. Computer, run pattern analysis. "On frequency burst 77 alpha," she commanded, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. The quantum processors hummed as they attempted to decode transmission patterns that seemed to shift and evolve even as she watched them. Strange symbols appeared on her screen, resembling everything from musical notes to mathematical equations, but nothing that matched any human language database. 15 light-minutes away, aboard the insectoid vessel Harmony's Web Interpreter, Kixtel struggled with concepts that had no equivalent in his species' peaceful vocabulary. The Vrakthi had evolved from hive-minded insects who resolved conflicts through pheromone communication and collective decision-making. The idea of one group of beings deliberately harming another was as foreign to them as breathing underwater. His translation matrix sparked and chirped as it processed human military communications. Neutralized target kept translating as invite to peaceful resolution, while acceptable casualties came through as celebration participants. Kixtel's compound eyes whirred in confusion as he tried to make sense of human transmissions that spoke of eliminating hostile forces and maximum battlefield effectiveness. "Perhaps these humans use metaphorical language for their ceremonies," Kixtel buzzed to his colleagues, his forearms adjusting the biomechanical translation device grafted to his chitinous head. "Their linguistic patterns suggest they're discussing elaborate theatrical performances with multiple participants." On the ground, Major Tay's voice cut through the radio chatter with military precision as he coordinated the largest joint training exercise in NATO history. From his command bunker buried deep beneath the Swiss Alps, he watched real-time satellite feeds showing simultaneous operations across 3 continents. American forces were advancing through urban combat scenarios in California, British SAS. Units were practicing high-altitude insertions in Scotland, and Korean mechanized divisions were demonstrating rapid deployment tactics in the DMZ. "Phoenix Leader, this is Control. Execute Maneuver 7 in T-30 seconds, Tay commanded, his tactical display showing the precise choreography of modern warfare. To him, it was a beautiful demonstration of human cooperation and strategic thinking. To the alien observers, monitoring every transmission, it looked like the most complex cultural performance ever attempted. The plant-based Verdani delegation aboard their living ship, Gentle Bloom, swayed in distress as they watched the exercises unfold. These beings had evolved from sentient trees, communicating through root networks and chemical signals. Their ship itself was a massive organism, its bark-like hull breathing slowly as organic sensors extended like branches into space. Elder Sylvan's leaf-covered form trembled as human forces demonstrated precision artillery strikes in the Nevada desert. Through her ship's biosensors, she could feel the explosive vibrations rippling through the Earth's crust. "Surely these beings cannot be intentionally causing such trauma to their world," she whispered, her voice rustling like wind through leaves. Perhaps their technology malfunctions during these ceremonies. But Sergeant Bow's unit had no malfunctions. His advanced weapons team moved with deadly efficiency through the desert training ground, their electromagnetic railguns charging with a high-pitched whine that made the alien observer's equipment register massive energy spikes. When Bo gave the order to fire, the hypersonic projectiles carved through armored targets like paper, creating explosions that registered on seismic equipment 3 states away. The Vadani ship's organic hull actually contracted in pain as it registered the destruction. These plant beings could sense the molecular disruption of matter, the violent tearing of chemical bonds that occurred during explosions. To them, watching, human weapons testing was like experiencing physical torture. "By the great root," Elder Sylvan gasped, her bark skin darkening with stress patterns. "They're not malfunctioning. They're doing this deliberately." The turning point came when the aliens' bioscanners began detecting something that made their peaceful minds reel with horror. Similar exercises were happening simultaneously across the globe, but the energy signatures were wrong. These weren't holographic displays or ceremonial pyrotechnics. The scanners detected real molecular disruption, actual matter being destroyed, genuine heat and pressure waves that could only come from weapons designed to kill. Dr. Yuna made the breakthrough at the same moment the aliens realized their mistake. Her translation program suddenly clicked into place, and human military terminology began appearing in alien script on her monitors. But instead of receiving messages of greeting and cultural exchange, she found herself reading tactical analyses of human combat effectiveness, deployment strategies, and something that made her blood run cold. Detailed discussions about whether humanity should be contained or eliminated as a threat to galactic peace. The alien fleets, now numbering over 30 vessels from dozens of worlds, hung in space like a gathering storm. Each ship's crew struggled to process the same terrifying realization. These weren't ceremonial displays or cultural performances. The humans weren't celebrating their arrival or preparing welcoming rituals. They were training for war with a precision and efficiency that exceeded anything in the galactic databases. The most chilling discovery came from the mechanical forge mines, whose robotic consciousness calculated battlefield effectiveness with cold logic. Their analysis confirmed what the organic species couldn't bear to accept. Humans had turned warfare into a science, and they were very, very good at it. Commander Hana's voice carried the quiet authority of someone who had spent 15 years perfecting the art of invisible warfare. In the secure briefing room 300 meters beneath the Pentagon, she addressed her hand-picked team of special operations soldiers, while holographic displays showed detailed urban environments, enemy patrol patterns, and extraction routes. That would make a master thief jealous. "Remember, the objective isn't to fight your way through the enemy," she explained, her laser pointer highlighting weak points in a simulated enemy base. "The objective is to complete the mission without the enemy ever knowing you were there. Ghost Protocol means exactly that. You become invisible, intangible, impossible to detect until the moment you strike." Her team nodded silently, their faces painted with adaptive camouflage that shifted colors in real time to match their surroundings. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were human predators evolved through decades of specialized training, each one capable of infiltrating, sabotaging, and eliminating targets with surgical precision. Floating in the void above Earth's magnetosphere, the energy beings from the Kethmore system existed as pure consciousness contained within crystalline matrices aboard their vessel, Thought's Edge. These ancient beings had transcended physical form millions of years ago, communicating through direct mind-to-mind contact and experiencing reality as patterns of pure information. They had witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations, but nothing had prepared them for what they were observing now. Entity Prime Zarthul attempted to process the human concepts flooding through their intercepted communications. Psychological warfare translated as mind-healing rituals in their peaceful framework, while deception protocols appeared as creative storytelling methods. But as the translation matrices worked over time, a horrifying picture began to emerge. They deliberately cause fear in their enemies, Zarthul broadcast to the collective consciousness, his energy pattern flickering with distress. They use deception not for entertainment, but to gain advantages in combat. They have systematized the art of making other beings suffer mentally before engaging them physically. The Kethmore Collective recoiled as they processed documentation of human psychological operations, propaganda techniques, disinformation campaigns, and methods for breaking enemy morale were concepts so alien to their peaceful existence that several entities temporarily destabilized, their energy patterns scattering like frightened birds. Meanwhile, in the abandoned industrial district of Detroit, Corporal Wu and his six-man team moved through the mock urban environment like shadows given deadly purpose. Their footsteps made no sound on broken concrete, their breathing perfectly controlled, their movements so fluid they seemed to flow like water between buildings. Each soldier carried equipment that would have seemed like magic to their grandfathers. Optical camouflage suits, electromagnetic field disruptors, and weapons that fired ammunition designed to be completely untraceable. Wu's hand signals guided his team through a simulated enemy compound, their night vision systems turning darkness into detailed tactical maps. They bypassed electronic sensors by hacking their programming, neutralized guard patrols through precisely timed tranquilizer darts, and infiltrated the target building without triggering a single alarm. The entire operation took 12 minutes and left no evidence they had ever been there. The Galactic Council's military analysts aboard the massive command ship Eternal Peace worked frantically to process what they were witnessing. Representatives from 47 worlds had gathered to study this new species, but their xenobiology databases contained no references for the concepts they were discovering. Wars in civilized space typically involved formal declarations, agreed-upon battlefield locations, and strict rules about civilian protection. General Tokmar of the warrior caste Brutani studied the human tactical data with growing unease. His species had conquered 12 star systems through direct military action, but they had always followed honorable combat protocols. "These humans fight without honor," he rumbled, his scaled hide darkening with stress patterns. "They attack from concealment. They use deception as a weapon. They target the minds of their enemies rather than facing them in honest battle." The insectoid hive queen Zelkuta's compound eyes whirred nervously as she processed psychological warfare manuals. "In our wars, we simply overwhelm the enemy with superior numbers. These they make the enemy defeat themselves through fear and confusion. It's brilliant and terrifying. But the greatest shock came when Captain Yoon's cyber warfare unit demonstrated their capabilities from a secure facility in South Korea. Rows of human operators sat before quantum computers that hummed with barely contained processing power, their screens showing network architectures, security protocols, and digital infrastructure maps that spanned entire continents. "Initiating exercise dark web," Yoon announced, her fingers dancing across haptic interfaces that responded to thought as much as touch. Within seconds, her team had infiltrated simulated enemy networks, crashed power grids, disabled communication, systems and planted logic bombs that could remain dormant for years before activating. The demonstration showed how humans could cripple entire civilizations without firing a single physical weapon. Banking systems collapsed, transportation networks froze, military command structures went dark, and emergency services shut down, all through carefully crafted lines of code that spread like viruses through digital networks. The mechanical forge mines. Aboard their geometric vessel, Logic's Perfection processed this information with cold mathematical precision. These artificial intelligences had been created by a species that had uploaded their consciousness into machines, and they understood technology better than any organic being in the galaxy. Their calculations showed something that made their circuits spark with what could only be described as digital terror. Human warfare efficiency exceeds our combat protocols by 847%, reported Unit Prime Alpha, its robotic voice carrying harmonics of disbelief. Despite primitive technology, their tactical adaptation and strategic thinking surpass our most advanced military algorithms. If they continue developing at current rates, they will pose an existential threat to all mechanized civilizations. Within 50 years, the realization spread through the alien fleets like wildfire. Humanity wasn't just good at war, they were rewriting the very concept of what warfare could be. Admiral Kang was reviewing submarine deployment patterns in the Pacific when the priority alert flashed across every screen in the Joint Chiefs Command Center. The message that appeared was unlike anything in military protocol: simple text in perfect Korean, English, Mandarin, and dozens of other languages simultaneously, appearing as if the aliens had instantly mastered every human communication system. "On Earth, we have been observing. We must discuss terms." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kang's weathered face remained composed, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of the tactical display. 40 years of military service had prepared him for many scenarios, but not for the moment when humanity would be judged by beings capable of crossing the void between stars. "Get me Dr. Ray at the Linguistics Center," he ordered, his voice cutting through the sudden chaos of the command room. "And patch me through to POTUS, the UN Security Council, and every defense minister on the planet. It seems we're about to find out if we're ready for the big leagues." 8,000 kilometers away in Geneva, Dr. Ray's exhausted team had been working for 72 hours straight to crack the alien communication protocols. The breakthrough came when they realized the aliens weren't using radio waves or digital signals. They were manipulating quantum entanglement itself to transmit information instantly across vast distances. The technology was so advanced it made human quantum computers look like pocket calculators. "The linguistic patterns are incredible," Dr. Ray explained to the emergency UN assembly via holographic projection, her eyes red with fatigue. "They're not just translating our languages. They're understanding the cultural context, the emotional undertones, even the historical references. This isn't machine translation. This is true comprehension by intelligences that think in ways we can barely imagine." Meanwhile, in the vast emptiness between Jupiter and Saturn, the Galactic Council's emergency session had transformed their diplomatic vessel Harmony's Reach into a courtroom where humanity's fate hung in the balance. Representatives from 47 civilizations argued through translation matrices that struggled to convey concepts none of them had ever needed to discuss before. The crystalline Lumenis delegate, Veltar, resonated with harmonic frequencies that translated as barely controlled panic. "Their warfare capabilities exceed anything in our databases. We've observed species that fight with energy weapons, plasma cannons, even reality-warping technology. But none of them approach conflict with such systematic precision. Humans have turned killing into a science." The aquatic Neradi Captain Zethara's tentacles writhed with distress as she broadcast through the liquid medium of her biosuit. "They don't just wage war. They study it, refine it, teach it to their young through elaborate simulations. We found records of their historical conflicts, and the casualty numbers are beyond comprehension. In a single conflict they call World War II, more beings died than exist on most civilized worlds." But it was the plant-based Verdani Elder Sylvan whose testimony made the council chamber fall silent. Her bark-like skin had turned ash-gray with stress as she shared what her biosensors had detected. "They're not even trying their hardest. The weapons we observed, the tactics they demonstrated. Our deep scans show they possess far more destructive capabilities. What we witnessed was restraint." On Earth, Colonel Sue worked through the night in the underground war room beneath NORAD, completely unaware that his every decision was being analyzed by beings whose technology could crack the planet like an egg. His holographic displays showed defensive positions across 6 continents, contingency plans for everything from limited engagement to global warfare, and deployment strategies that assumed the enemy might possess technology centuries beyond human capability. "If they wanted us dead, we'd already be dead," Sue muttered to his aide, Major Park, as they reviewed satellite imagery of the alien fleet. "The fact they're talking means they either want something from us, or they're debating whether we're worth the trouble of exterminating. Either way, we prepare for every possibility." Sue's tactical mind had already calculated the defensive scenarios: orbital bombardment, atmospheric poisoning, electromagnetic pulse attacks that would cripple human technology. Against beings who could travel between stars, conventional warfare seemed almost pointless. But humans had never been conventional, and Sue's plans reflected that reality. Above the Pacific, Lieutenant Commander Bin coordinated the most complex military redeployment in human history from aboard the carrier USS Enterprise. In 12 hours, every military asset on Earth had been repositioned according to protocols that had been theoretical until this moment. Nuclear submarines disappeared into ocean trenches, stealth aircraft vanished into hardened bunkers, and mobile missile platforms scattered across continents like seeds on the wind. The alien observers watched this coordination with growing horror. They had expected panic, confusion, maybe desperate attempts at negotiation. Instead, they witnessed a species that had transformed fear into tactical advantage, uncertainty into strategic planning, and the threat of extinction into an opportunity. To demonstrate why humanity had survived every challenge their violent world had thrown at them, the Forge Mind Collective processed the data with mechanical precision, their artificial consciousness calculating probabilities that made their circuits spark with overload warnings. Human military cooperation exceeds optimal efficiency parameters, Unit Prime Alpha reported to the Council. Individual nation-states with competing interests have achieved tactical coordination that surpasses our most advanced hive-mind civilizations. They are more dangerous working together than any single military force we have encountered. The final revelation came when the Kethmore energy beings shared their analysis of human historical records. These ancient consciousnesses had downloaded and processed every piece of human military history they could access, and what they found shattered their understanding of civilized behavior. The conflicts we observed are small by their standards. Entity Prime Zarthal broadcast, his energy pattern flickering with something approaching terror. Their weapons have grown more precise, their tactics more efficient, their cooperation more complete. They have not become less warlike. They have become better at war while choosing to wage it less often. This restraint is not weakness. It is the self-control of apex predators who know exactly how dangerous they are. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't a primitive species stumbling toward civilization. They were experienced warriors who had learned to sheath their claws, and that made them infinitely more dangerous than any species that simply didn't know how to fight. General Hai had faced down enemy armies, natural disasters, and political crises, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Standing at the podium in the United Nations General Assembly, she watched as the air above the delegates shimmered and twisted, reality bending like heated glass until a figure materialized in the center of the chamber. The alien representative appeared as a shifting geometric pattern of light and energy, its form constantly changing, as if it couldn't decide what shape would be least terrifying to human eyes. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere, bypassing human ears entirely and speaking directly to their minds in perfect, crystal-clear language. I am Coordinator Velnash of the Galactic Council Emergency Response, the being announced, its form pulsing with urgent red light. We come not as conquerors or observers, but as suppliants. The galaxy burns, and we require your assistance. The delegates sat in stunned silence as holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showing star maps that painted a picture of absolute devastation. Red zones marked dead systems, their planets stripped bare and lifeless. The infection spread like cancer across the galaxy's spiral arms, consuming everything in its path. The Devourer swarm emerged from the void between galaxies 6 months ago, Velnash continued, the alien's distress evident in the way its light patterns flickered and sparked. They are not like us. They do not communicate, negotiate, or show mercy. They consume biological matter, technology, even the minerals of entire worlds. 17 civilizations have fallen completely. 23 more are under siege. General Hai stepped forward, her military bearing unchanged despite the impossible situation. What exactly are you asking of us? The alien's form shifted, becoming more solid and defined, as if focusing its energy to deliver the most important message in galactic history. We require military assistance. Your species demonstrates tactical capabilities that exceed our most advanced civilizations. We need warriors, strategists, leaders who understand warfare as you do. The chamber erupted in voices, some demanding more information, others questioning humanity's readiness. Still others arguing about the implications of joining a galactic conflict. But Captain Dong, military liaison to the UN, cut through the chaos with the practiced efficiency of a career soldier. We'll need detailed tactical assessments of enemy capabilities, complete supply chain logistics for extended deep space operations, and clear rules of engagement parameters, he stated, his tone as matter-of-fact as if he were planning a training exercise. Timeline for deployment, available alien technology integration and command structure protocols. When do we start? The alien's light pattern suddenly blazed brighter, hope radiating from its shifting form. In less than 72 hours, the impossible became routine as humanity mobilized for its first interstellar war. Major Nara stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, humanity's first space-worthy warship, watching as alien vessels the size of cities positioned themselves in formation around Earth's newest military asset. The human ship looked like a sleek predator compared to the organic curves of Nereidi bioships or the crystalline geometries of Luminis vessels. Where alien ships were built for beauty and efficiency, human engineering focused on one purpose: controlled destruction delivered with surgical precision. Alien Fleet Command, this is Nara. Human forces ready for jump to combat zone, she announced. Her words transmitted instantly across the fleet through alien quantum communication systems. The response came as a chorus of different voices, each representing species that had spent centuries in peaceful coexistence, now united by desperate necessity. The jump to hyperspace felt like being turned inside out and reassembled in the wrong order. When normal space reformed around them, the fleet emerged into a nightmare. The Kepler 442 system had once hosted a thriving civilization of crystal-based life forms. Now it was a feeding ground for creatures that defied description. The Devourer swarm moved like a living storm cloud across the system, individual organisms the size of battleships working in perfect coordination to strip entire planets down to their core metals. They weren't ships or machines. They were living beings that had evolved in the empty spaces between galaxies, growing large enough to survive on stellar radiation and planetary mass. Commander Sol watched the tactical displays. From the human fleet's command ship, his mind processing battle information faster than the alien computers could analyze it. Pattern recognition complete, he announced. They're following biological imperatives, not tactical doctrine. Swarm behavior, pack hunting strategies, territorial marking. They're not an army. They're a predator species. What happened next would be studied in alien military academies for thousands of years. Sol adapted human warfare doctrines in real time, treating the Devourer swarm not as an enemy fleet, but as a natural phenomenon to be redirected rather than destroyed. Human ships moved like wolves through the swarm, attacking weak points, disrupting feeding patterns, and using the creature's own biological drives against them. The alien allies watched in amazement as human forces protected damaged alien vessels, evacuated civilian populations under fire, and coordinated rescue operations while simultaneously conducting offensive strikes. Where other species had tried to fight the swarm head-on and been consumed, humans danced around the edges of destruction, saving lives while methodically crippling their enemies. When the Devourer swarm finally retreated, the first time in their recorded existence they had abandoned a feeding ground, the silence in the combined fleet was deafening. Commander Sol's final tactical report was transmitted to every ship in the Alliance. Mission accomplished. Civilian casualties minimal. Enemy forces neutralized through strategic harassment rather than direct confrontation. Recommend immediate pursuit to prevent regrouping. As the fleet prepared for the return journey to Earth, Lieutenant Yeon compiled the mission reports that would change galactic history. Her transmission to Earth Command included tactical data, casualty reports, and something unprecedented, formal requests from 17 alien civilizations for permanent military alliance with humanity. The aquatic Nereidi captain Zethara's message was typical of the responses flooding human communication channels. We have observed your species wage war with honor, precision, and genuine care for those you protect. We no longer fear your capacity for destruction. We are humbled by your capacity for protection. We formally request alliance and military cooperation. As Earth appeared in the viewport, growing larger with each passing moment, the alien crews understood the truth that would reshape galactic civilization. Humans weren't the galaxy's greatest threat, they were its greatest hope. The same species that could wage war with terrifying efficiency could also wage peace with the same dedication, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, while showing mercy to enemies who deserved none. The Galactic Council's emergency session became a celebration, as representatives who had once debated humanity's quarantine now competed to offer trade agreements, technology exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. Humanity had passed the ultimate test, proving that their capacity for war was matched only by their capacity for wisdom in choosing when and how to use it. The end.